Hello, Oshkosh. This is Edward Kastner from Making It Happen. Tonight, I'm very honored to have the UW, some of the UW volleyball team and the head coach. We have to the side of me here now. We have Renee Rush, and then we have John Elman in the middle, and then we have Taylor Allen on the other side. So, thank you for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having us.
So John, what got you interested in sports growing up? Or who was your big influence, or what sporting event did you first watch?
Oh my goodness, those are three questions. I'm going to try to tackle them all.
Okay.
I grew up in a little tiny town in Fish Creek, Wisconsin, Door County.
Okay.
And so all we did was go to school and mess around outside playing sports. And so everybody just culturally played sports. And so that's kind of how I got into it. The first sporting event I ever went to was actually a Bucks game down in Milwaukee. And so my dad took me down to Milwaukee and went to a Bucks game, and that was where I was first exposed to like a...
How old were you when you went to the first Bucks game?
Oh, maybe 8 years old, 8 or
Okay.
9. Yeah,
Okay.
that was my first big.
And what did you think of the experience?
I thought immediately that I was going to be a professional basketball player.
Really, for serious?
That was like my goal. I'm like, I want to play on the floor. That's pretty awesome. I was not very good at basketball, but at that point I didn't know that yet. So ignorance is bliss. But yeah, I thought I was going to be a professional basketball player for about 2.5 years of my life.
Okay. And then, when did you first get involved in athletics through the school aspect, or did your dad? You know how some families, they go outside and they throw a ball to each other. They go out and, or whatever.
Yeah, my dad was a big baseball player, so he played AAA baseball, and so in the backyard we just chuck a baseball around a lot. He was a middle school basketball coach, and was a teacher at that time in the middle school, and so we used to take his keys and go to the school and shoot around and play baseball a ton. But Little League was my first organized sport that I played. You were just a little guy and head to the baseball field in the summer and play some Little League, and then middle school sports for us is when it started. We were in an area where club sports were big when we were young, and so middle school, all of it, track, cross country, basketball, is what we did.
You did it all then, huh?
Yeah.
Well, what was your favorite?
That's unfair. That is an unfair question. As a multi-sport athlete, I really just loved this sport that was in season. So you're doing it with all of your friends, and most of the people did each sport. And so when it was the fall, we loved our fall sport. When it was winter, we loved our winter sport, so on and so forth.
I mean, did you like being? I mean, obviously you weren't. You try to be good at all sports,
Right.
but what was it like being part of a team for you?
That's a great question. I don't think I really realized. I think as a younger athlete, you just operate in space. You kind of just go and you play with your friends, and you want it to be fun, and you want to obviously win. But I don't think I spent a lot of time at that phase of my life, being younger, thinking about what it was actually like to be on a team. I just knew that I liked playing with people that had a common goal and that had fun playing the sport with me, and that's really what sort of brought us together as a team. Maybe later in life, after high school, when you start to think about bigger goals, actually in high school, what does the postseason mean? What does it mean to be successful? Wins and losses.
Mm-hmm.
You start to think about things a little differently. Then I think maybe the team concept started to change a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And what is your definition of success?
That is a loaded question. Success can be measured in a lot of different ways. I think the most common way that people in general measure success is wins and losses. So the first thing people ask you after an event or after a weekend is, how did your team do? And what they mean by that is, how many wins do you have, how many losses do you have? And that's obviously one way. Storied programs that have experienced success over a long period of time, those records are impressive things that stand, and I think that's one way to look at it. Two, within that, there's sort of a game within a game. You can win a match, you can have an undefeated season, and within all of those wins, there's matches where you maybe didn't play as well as you should have. And so even if you're undefeated, success, you might not have been as successful as you wanted to be. And then on the flip side, if you have a couple losses, could you still find some success in those losses?
Mm-hmm.
I think the answer is arguably yes. I'm pretty sure that when I was 8, if I would have played the national team, I probably would have lost, but I could have had my best game. And so there's that measure of success that's more maybe process-based. In addition, in coaching now, for me, success is beyond also just wins and losses. It's how successful the human beings are that we're working with. Like if our players graduate, in a somewhat timely fashion and get a job that they're excited about and excel personally and professionally. That's also a measure of success for us in our collegiate program.
Do you remember your first success growing up for your first sport that like maybe broke your PR on cross country, or do you remember your first one?
Yeah, I mean, I do actually, and unfortunately for me, I had the flu that day. It was a track meet, and it was my senior year, and I got the flu, and it was my PR in high jump. We broke a school record in the 4x1 relay. It was a qualifying a mark for us at that time, and I went home. They called the ambulance. And the ambulance came into my house, and I like hyperventilated. It was like a horrible day, but that was like the first time when like I just like remember busting records. And unfortunately, it's also associated with a poor.
But sometimes I think that's when adrenaline kicks in, and it really.
Yeah, I think some of the best stories in sports are about Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers just the other night. He's like, leaves the field, comes back on with a busted knee, and has the best comeback in Packer history. I'm sorry, I'm sitting next to a Bears fan right here. Not happy about that, but I think sometimes those things happen. And there were a multitude of things. I think everybody that plays sports for a long period of time has the games that they remember.
So Renee and Taylor, this question is to you. Do you remember your first success sport that you had your first success in?
Yeah, for me, it was in high school, my senior year. I won my first conference championship, and that, like, at our school was a huge deal. Everyone was super excited, and I was fortunate enough to be the captain, and so that was just super awesome to see, like, all my little teammates succeed, and, like, it was a huge deal for our program.
Mm-hmm. How old were you then?
I was a senior in high school,
Okay.
so 17, 18.
So, and how did that success make you grow as a person?
It was really awesome. Like, to work so hard for something and then to actually be able to accomplish it and just like plow over the other team and just really do amazing things. That was really cool.
Okay. And John, what was your first volleyball game you watched?
The first volleyball game that I watched would have been when I was in either 8th grade or freshman in high school, our high school varsity team. That would have been the first volleyball match that I watched. We had a unique situation where our program at the time, when I started in high school, wasn't as successful, and all of the guys in our class fell in love with the game of volleyball, and so we started playing outdoor in the summers, and we had this fan following. So we would show up in hordes, like everybody in our school would show up and just be super rowdy for our volleyball team. And by the time we graduated, as seniors, it was one of the most successful years in program history. And so we just sort of fell in love with that, the sport. A lot of us started playing it, and we didn't have guys volleyball. And so that's why, for me as somebody who didn't have an opportunity to play the sport, it became sort of a part of my identity, just playing outside, playing beach volleyball, playing adult volleyball was my thing.
Yeah.
My jam.
Do you wish you would have had guys volleyball at your high school?
Yes and no.
Do you think there would have been enough interest?
I don't. I don't. I think it's a hard sell for small schools to add men's volleyball. We really struggled just to get enough guys to play on a football team. We were a co-op for football, and so I don't think it would have gone over. We didn't have soccer. We didn't have a lot of the sports that they have now. It was really just the traditional sports that we had. So as much as I'd like to say, yes, I would have loved to have it and loved to play it, I don't think it would have gone over very well at that time.
Because there's not too many guys volleyball teams out there right now. So.
That's correct.
What would you say to a small town that maybe wanted to start one? If you could give them a direction, how would you direct that?
Well, the nice thing about volleyball is you don't have to be on an organized 6-on-6 team. You can
Okay.
play in multiple different formats. Like for me, I grew up playing 2-on-2 beach volleyball in the sand, 4-on-4 grass volleyball. And so my first real experience playing was moving to Florida and playing, down on the Gulf Coast after I graduated high school, playing sand volleyball. And there you get to play with professionals and amateurs alike. And so if you're in an area where there isn't high school volleyball, you can travel to play club volleyball. Anywhere between 30 and probably 100 miles, you'll find a club that offers men's volleyball, or you can just play, in those sand and grass disciplines, and you can do that anywhere. And there's tournaments throughout the year in every region of the country.
Yeah, because we have a very successful Wisconsin Volleyball Association, don't we?
We do indeed. We do indeed.
So, When did you first fall in love with volleyball? Like, hey, this is my thing. I really love this. You know.
Really, the later couple of years of high school, I worked for a few years at a concession stand on a beach. It was a really rough gig, and every single work break, I would just go outside and play volleyball. And all of our days off, we would go to this beach, Nicolay Beach in Peninsula State Park, and play ball. And so we would bring our own nets, we would set them up, and it was the social gathering place for everybody in the summer in Door County. You would go to Nicolay Bay, and you would hang out around the volleyball courts, and winter would stay, and you would just play and play and play. And from the second everybody got there until the time the sun went down or it started raining. And so that's really when I started to fall in love with it. It sort of became, my identity. Everything that I wanted to do was either work or go play ball. And
How many hours would you play?
per day, where we're talking, 8 to 12 hours, a day. We're playing from the time the sun came up until the time the sun went down. It was that's all we did.
Okay. And you said you played against some professionals too down there?
When I lived in Florida, yeah, you had the opportunity to sign up for tournaments where you play against professionals and amateurs, and so I got worked by people that were way better than me. But it was a lot of fun. That's where you really, from somebody that came from a small area, you think that you're good at something. Big fish, small pond, and then you go to a place where you're the small fish in a big pond and realize that there are a ton of way more talented people out there than you. And so that was an eye-opening experience and a really motivating one. To find out that something that I thought I was at a pretty good level with, I was really towards the bottom of the barrel. And so that was motivating as well, to know that I had to work pretty hard and learn a lot of new things to try to compete at a higher level.
When you were playing, as well as coaching now, what's the one thing, or maybe more than one thing, that you've learned about yourself?
That's a great question. I've learned a lot of things about myself. You definitely start to identify strengths and weaknesses. But for me, I'm going to stick this specifically to coaching. I think when you work with a group of coaches and a group of players, you oftentimes have a common goal that you want to achieve, and there's oftentimes hurdles that you have to overcome throughout the course of that season. And no two seasons are alike. And so the process that you go through with that group of people to try to figure out how you want to get to where you want to go is oftentimes where you learn things about yourself. You can't just do the same thing and always be the exact same person and become successful. You've got to be able to adjust and make some change and maybe change your mindset a little bit to get yourself where you want to go and get a group of people to go where collectively you would like to go. And so the lessons there are many. There's no way that I can just pick one, but maybe the one thing that stands out is that you've got to be flexible and open-minded, and sometimes you think you have the path laid out, but oftentimes you have to adjust that if you really want to be successful.
Renee, what's the one thing? What's the one thing you've learned about yourself through the years playing volleyball or any athletic sports? What's the one thing you learned about yourself?
I think I learned just accepting change and learning from things other people have given me, obviously volleyball wise, how to get better, and even character wise, pushing not only yourself but your teammates as well.
Have you had any injuries that have changed that perspective through the years, or because sometimes we have an injury, it makes us stronger, better,
I personally have had nothing super major, little things here and there, but I've always been the person to play through things. Even till my stopping point, I'll just keep powering through. I don't want to be hurt because I want to keep playing and pushing myself and competing. So nothing too major.
And what's been your biggest test? Because some nights you have those off nights where you're not always on, but it can test you mentally, and you get down. What do you do? What do you do when you get down? What kind of positive mojo do you use when you get down?
Mental game is tough. I've definitely had those games and moments and all of the above, but I think just leaning on my teammates and knowing confidence-wise that I can do it, and knowing that it's all just in your head. You just have to go out there and execute and candy doesn't help. Candy helps the occasion.
Is Candy a nickname for Taylor?
No, I'm a candy person. I love candy.
Oh, you love candy. Okay, okay.
I love Skittles.
Okay.
Pick me up.
So I'll just call you Skittles. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Taste the rainbow.
Taylor, same question goes to you. Like, you know, what have you learned from playing volleyball about yourself?
Oh, so much. I've learned so much about myself, about the sport of volleyball, about the people who play it. I've grown so much as an individual, I would say, for sure.
How so?
I've made so many friends in volleyball. I've accepted leadership roles that I probably wouldn't have thought at the beginning that I would even accept.
Can you give me an example of a leadership role that you've accepted that kind of you went outside your box?
Yeah, so my senior season that I won the conference championship, I was actually the captain of that team, and I was the only senior on the team. So I knew like going into that season that would probably be my role, but it was really cool and like surreal actually doing it and just being that person that your teammates could fall on if they ever needed you, or lead you on the court, lead by example, just things like that. It was a really cool experience.
And did you ever think before the season started that you would be, did you ever, because sometimes we surprise ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of knew that I was probably going to accept that role my senior season since I was the only senior, but
Okay.
I definitely didn't know if there were going to be other captains with me, some younger girls, and there actually weren't. But it was just really cool to lead the team to those victories.
How do you think that small, of being your captain has made you grow into the person you are today?
Just, I don't know, like every day I can just be the person I want to be, and on the volleyball court I can be the person I want to be, and to just accept challenges and move through them and keep going. That's a big thing I've learned for sure, mental toughness, just keep going, because you can't just stop because you messed up or made an error. You just got to keep going.
And how has John helped you become the person that you are today? Because every coach has a little piece of.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, John's been great. He's been great. He always helps me, picks me up when I'm down. He's like, come on, get your head in the game. Let's go.
What kind of funny thing does he do? Because John's a very funny guy. I've known John for like 5-6 years now.
Yeah.
So.
He's very, whenever I look on the sidelines, he's very into it. He's very into the stats. He's jotting stuff down. And then sometimes when you make a big play, you look over and just an explosion on his face you can see. So that's always a pretty validating thing, It's like, okay, great, got that.
Okay. And what position do you both play?
I'm a middle blocker.
Okay.
I'm an outside hitter.
Okay.
I'm a coach.
John, can you describe your most successful season at any level? Because I know that you coached talk a little bit about your freshman year at. We'll backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
Talk about your freshman your freshman job at Galbraith High School.
Yeah. My first year coaching, I was 19 years old,
Okay.
and all I knew is that I loved volleyball.
Okay.
And I knew that at that time, our younger programs hadn't really won a whole lot. And so my only goal at that time, it wasn't really to win a lot of matches. It was to get people to believe that they could win and enjoy playing the sport and understand the sport maybe at a little higher level. And I was an absolute horrible coach. I was just like a kid, basically. I was had a lot of fun, and I think the team had a lot of fun. But I actually watched. I still have this to this day, a VHS tape of the first match that I coached, and I thought it was cool because I was actually recording my matches, and that's what serious coaches do.
Yeah.
I had a playbook that I gave my team about what plays they're going to run in each rotation, so that was cool. And as I watched this tape back, I actually watched it the week before I applied for the president of the WVCA and gig, and I couldn't identify the offense that we were running. I had no idea what I was doing. I completely made it up. And so what we were doing was not maybe the best thing, but it worked for us. We ended up winning a couple matches, and then I obviously learned a lot from that point forward. But I knew that I loved it. I knew that I was passionate about it.
Do you remember your record that first year?
Yeah, probably like 3-12 or something. Yeah, it was not awesome.
What did you learn about yourself as I know I said this question earlier, but what did you learn about yourself that first year?
In terms of wins and losses, that I hate losing. You know, like the competitive side really never is always there. And so, you know, handling, I think I learned a lot about mindset and how you have to handle wins and losses, because I knew that I didn't handle it in a healthy way personally. I just took it, you know, I was like, I'm a failure. Like, why am I really doing this? We only won 3 matches. You know, is this worth all my time and my effort? And then by the time the next season came around, when you look at the players that come back in the gym that started to fall in love with the game and started to learn a little bit more about the game, then all of a sudden your why becomes a little bit more clear. You realize that you're not just doing it for a record, you're doing it for the people that walk into that gym. And that was sort of the beginning of the snowball for me, where I really became passionate about it.
Do you still keep in contact with some of those players, or?
A little bit, you know, like on social media, we'll connect every once in a while. But I mean, most of them are now, you know, families, kids. It's been a few years since then.
Speaking of family and kids, is it hard being a father plus a coach?
Yeah, you know,
Because the balance, you know, the balance.
balance is a hard thing in anybody's professional career. You know, I'm blessed. I've got an amazing family, and my wife is extremely supportive of what I do. My kiddo is extremely supportive of what I do. I'm gone a ton. You know, like I'm basically, we're like ships passing in the night. This time of year, I go home, everybody's in bed. I wake up before they're, you know, gone, and I go to work. And so to have somebody that supports you and finding ways to communicate throughout those times of the year, you know, that means a lot. And so I would say, yeah, it's hard to balance those things, but you know, each of us have our own passions. You know, my daughter's got her passions, and we support those. My wife has got hers, and we support those as well. And so we're all pretty driven, and we all pour a lot of time and effort into the things that we like to do. And when you're supported in a family structure or friendship, you know, within your friends or teammates and coaching staff, that makes it pretty easy. You know, so I'm just lucky that I've got that support.
I know Jackie's not here right now, but do you think it takes a special partner, because you know you're gone a lot, you're on the road a lot, you're recruiting, you're always doing something.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can't say enough about the support that I get from my wife and family to allow me to do what I do. Make me all emotional.
Did you ever wish that you were playing professionally, or do you like where you're at right now?
You know, that's I'm not good enough. But you know, you think about it, and when my collegiate playing career ended, my family was starting, and so for me, that was never something that really, I never got bit by that bug. It was more important for me to just make good decisions for my family and settle down in the Oshkosh area, and so, you know, it was something that you think about, and sure, if I had an opportunity, would I have done it? You know, probably, but the people that get to do that are in a pretty specific place in their life. They're usually ending their collegiate career, probably don't have a family quite yet, or if they do, they're trying to make their full life, their real profession, you know, playing volleyball, and so that's a little bit different there. So.
Do you want to go into your most successful season at any level? You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Sure. You know, in the early days, it was, you know, having a winning season, going almost undefeated after you started with a very few wins. At Lourdes, you know, we started in a really hard conference, and we weren't as successful as we wanted to be in that program. I took over as that ship was starting to get righted, and then ended up winning, you know, multiple conference championships and getting a team to the state tournament, which has been there multiple times since.
How did that feel to win your first conference championship? You know, how did that, you know?
It was great. It validated, you know, all of the things that you thought were important, and for us, it was doing the right things for the right reason, and we wanted to win the right way, and we wanted to play the right way, and we lost a few times, but you know, to finally get over that hump and win, you know, doing things the right way is pretty satisfying.
And talk a little bit about the year that you made it to stay with Lourdes. How did that feel after getting over the hump, after being in regionals and sectionals so many times and being the finalist for a couple, and you know, how did that feel?
And you can't explain that feeling, you know, when you accomplish a goal that you've set for yourself. That's at a pretty high bar. You know, it almost was pretty surreal. You know, we had been you back up to the regional side of things. We had been in like 5 consecutive regional finals and lost, and finally punched that ticket. And then we were in 2 consecutive sectional finals and lost, and to finally get it in the third, you know, go around in a dramatic comeback fashion was pretty fun. You know, but that's all. You know, I can't. It was amazing, you know, but again, it was how much of that is coaching staff, how much of that is players. That was just a pretty special moment where all of those things came together, and a team had achieved a goal. And now moving forward, obviously, there's I was lucky my first year at Oshkosh as an assistant. We got to make it to the NCAA tournament and compete there, which is our goal every year here. And so now, as you move on from almost 20 years ago freshman volleyball to 12 years of coaching high school and now coaching collegiately, the goals are the bigger and the dreams are bigger, but the process ultimately remains the same. And so now we're excited about moving a new group of people towards a common goal, which is consistent postseason success in not only the WISC but the nation for UW Oshkosh.
Taylor and Renee, can you talk a little bit about the process playing for John? About his mission statement, about what he about what he wants you to follow.
Yeah, it's not. I think the goal is not only result based, but like you talked about earlier, process based too. We not only talk about on court presence, but like off court, like what you do when you're off on the sideline, what you do in real life, like what you do on the court, like all resembles who you are as a person and like who you will be not only once you're done with volleyball, but in the future too.
And how does he relay that message to you, about life? What kind of message does he, what does he say in timeouts or huddles to make it full circle?
I just play a lot of YouTube videos and film sessions. That's really kind of my thing.
That's true.
I mean, I can answer that for them. I mean, I think in timeouts, timeouts are a 30-second window, and I don't think that we spend a lot of that time talking about big philosophical concepts. I think a lot of it is just a little indirect. Like we take this last evening, for example, we had a meeting with our captains and we talked about how you connect for classes. Like how do we get the freshmen to really understand what it's the importance and urgency of every single match in a collegiate season, because in high school everybody goes to the tournament and in college you don't. And some of the things we talked about were, well, you've got to have your team united and your team has got to trust each other. And the way that you cheer has got to be just sincere and purposeful. And so just if you take that into a match, like our last match against St. Norbert that we just played here last night, when we see those things, we celebrate those things. And so we saw what we like to see. We saw a bench that was just rowdy and sincere and helping us reach our goals. And so we championed that. We made a point of calling that out in a positive way. We use the word unity as we were talking between sets and in timeouts. And so just trying to connect the dots in every phase when we're talking in a small group setting like this, or when we're in a practice gym, or when we're competing, how often can we talk about the things that are important? That would obviously be a goal.
Taylor and Renee, really quick. Oh, well, thank you for joining me today, and see you later, Oshkosh.